In this video, we'll learn how to use layer masks and layer mask stacks here inside of MARI. Alright, great. So in the previous video, we learned about kind of this layer-based workflow that MARI utilizes, and I want to continue this discussion about this. So, as with many other applications, MARI supports a feature called a layer mask. Now, if you've never used a layer-based approach to painting before, you can paint onto a layer or put texture onto a layer, and if you wanted to remove that texture or erase that texture, you would do so typically in a destructive way by simply erasing it off that layer or removing it. Now, destructive workflows are typically not a good idea for any artist. So instead of erasing or removing that texture permanently, say this skin texture for example, MARI could apply a layer mask to the layer that this texture lived on, and we could paint into that layer mask and hide that texture. So that texture is still there and available if we need it, but we are now hiding it using a layer mask. Let's jump over here into our diffuse layer stack, and you'll notice here that there are a number of layer masks being utilized in our diffuse channel. So these layer masks have a little icon that looks like a square with a circle in it. Now notice for this feather line work layer, the icon to the left of that mask icon is orange. The highlighting of this icon is indicative of me targeting that layer. So if I were to click on the tattoo line work above that, you'll see that the layer type icon gets highlighted. So in highlighting or targeting a layer, that's telling MARI, hey, I want to make changes to this layer. Now, if we want to make changes to a layer mask, like the one for this feather line work, we actually need to click on the mask icon. And notice that it changes to an orange color here. So MARI knows that, hey, we're going to be painting into this mask, not onto the layer itself. Really important there. So in looking at this mask, this particular mask was used to create the line work for these feathers right here. Now, I want to show you the contents of this layer mask, and this is actually, I think, really helpful to visualize what the mask is doing. So basically, there is a procedural layer here, which we're going to talk about in a couple of videos. But there's a procedural layer that's applying color to everything, and I've hidden that color using this mask and then painted these feathers into the mask. And just to show you what that looks like, I'm going to come over here with the mask selected, choose current paint target. Now again, we could select this through our shaders palette or through our channel pop-up just by holding the I key and selecting current paint target. I'm going to go ahead and select that here, and as soon as I do, what you're going to see here is, well, there's some shading going on. So probably a good idea to go ahead and come up here and click the flat lighting button inside of our lighting toolbar. And now you can see what the line work for those feathers looks like. You can see I've actually come in here and drawn into this mask what these feathers are. So this is one way you can utilize a layer mask. Let me go ahead and turn my full lighting back on, and I'll switch back over to my BRDF shader. Now, let me show you what the process of creating a mask looks like. We could actually come down here towards the bottom of our layer stack, let's say maybe for this image projection layer. This is the layer that I have all of this skin texture on. Let's say that we wanted to create a mask for this layer. We could click this button here, and it would create a mask that is revealing everything on the layer. That means the mask really isn't doing anything. It's ready to be painted into. Now, oftentimes, I need to create a mask for a big area. Say for this head right here. I want to mask out everything except for the head. So what we could do is, instead of using this button here to create our mask, we could select the head, like I've done here, using the selection tool. And I can right-click on the layer, and then come over to this layer mask flyout, and add a mask. And you can see there's some options here. We can reveal all, we can hide all. The one that I'm going to use here is from selection. So when I do this, what's going to happen here is MARI's going to create a layer mask that's hiding the skin texture everywhere where I have not made a selection. And it's going through the process of creating that mask. You can see down here in the status bar, it's working on it. Bear with it here. Again, this is a pretty large project, so it does take Mari a little bit of time to think. And you can always tell it's thinking when that little gray circle shows up right in the middle of your canvas. And of course, your cursor changes to the little blue circle. So there we go. We've got our layer mask created. Now, for some reason, it is disabled. So we'll talk about that here in just a moment. After creating that mask in the method that I just did, what you should see if you're following along with me is the kind of transparency grid for the body, but we'll still see the head texture up here. So this is something similar to what you should see on your side of things. And basically what I've done here is I have hidden that image projection texture everywhere that I did not have selected. And again, my selection is the head. If we wanted to, we could come look at the current paint target under flat lighting circumstances here. And you can see everything is black and the head is white. So black in a mask is going to hide information, white is going to reveal it, and grayscale values in between are going to do something somewhere between the two. Let's go ahead and turn our BRDF shader back on here. All right, great. Now you saw that mask come in disabled. I'm not quite sure why Mari decided to do that, but let's talk about that. So what we can do here, we've got a mask created, but let's say we want to turn the mask off without deleting it. We can always delete the mask pretty easily by right-clicking over here, coming to Layer Mask, and choosing Remove Mask. But let's say we just want to turn it off and look at the texture underneath without the mask. We can come over and shift-click on that mask at any time, and it puts that little red X through the mask. Now that red X indicates that the mask is disabled. So we are now looking at the mesh without any influence of the mask. And at any time, if we wanted to bring it back, we could come over here and shift-click on the mask itself, and that will bring the mask right back. You can also come in here if the mask is, for the sake of this example, disabled, and you could right-click and come to Layer Mask and choose to enable the mask. All right, great. Let's go ahead and remove this mask. I'm just going to right-click and remove that mask. And let's come back up here to these feathers, the feather line work. So the thing about a mask is essentially it is a single layer that you're able to paint into to either hide or reveal information on a layer, as we've seen here. Now sometimes, for example, in the case of these tattoos, maybe I wanted to draw some more tattoos on her head. I wanted to really cover her in all kinds of tattoos. And I wanted to maybe do that on a different mask or a different layer so that the things I was painting onto this new tattoo didn't affect these feathers. I'm pretty happy with those. Well, Mari supports a feature called a mask stack. We already understand what a layer stack is. A mask stack is a stack of masks. Pretty descriptive, right? Let me show you how it works. We'll come over and select our feather line work here. Now, this already has a mask on it, so it's probably not a good idea to come down here and click this button because this is what you would use to add a mask stack. Because this layer already has a mask on it, we can just simply right-click on this and go to Layer Mask and choose to make that mask a stack. If we were to do this, watch what happens. That little icon right over here changes. It's no longer a square with a circle in it. Instead, it's now a little hamburger icon, very similar to the layer stack icons that we saw in a previous video. Let's go ahead and click on that hamburger. Hey, look at that. A whole new palette popped open, and now, whoop, I just snapped it into place. Let me go ahead and undock that. There we go. And I'll just pin it down for the time being. So this is now on the assassin object, the feather line work layer, mask stack. So what I have here is essentially a whole layer stack dedicated to the feather line work layer. So what I've already painted is on this layer, but I could come in and add new paint layers on top of this layer and paint new information onto them. If I wanted to add to this tattoo, if I wanted to subtract from the tattoos, without actually physically destroying what I've already drawn. So this mask stack feature is a very unique feature to MARI, and it's a fantastic feature. I can't tell you how much I use this. It's one of my favorite features. So at this point, let's go ahead and wrap this video up and move on to our next video where we'll learn about adjustment layers and adjustment stacks.